Hello and welcome to Random Fandom FC, the podcast dedicated to understanding how you fell in love with your team, your highest highs, your lowest low, and anything else I should know. I'm Rob, an Arsenal fan living in the States, and I'll be your host. But now we need to turn our attention to this week's guest. So I wonder who we have this week. Well, who are you and who do you support?
My name's David Shepherd. I am 47 and I am a Leeds United fan.
A Leeds United fan who must be now very happy after yesterday.
Yes, you could say that. It's been a very, very long 9 months. And at one point we didn't think we were going to get there. And then we did. And yeah, let's just say alcohol was drank to celebrate yesterday. And I'm feeling a little bit rough for today. But that doesn't matter. We're promoted and I'm here.
It was funny, like yesterday, because we'd had Steve on, who was a Derby fan, and I knew you were coming on today. I was like engrossed in the championship battle at both ends because I was like, will Derby stay up? And Leeds going to win the title? Because I'm sure you're happy to return to the Premier League, but if Burnley had gone up as champions, it maybe takes the shine off it a little bit. So
yes, I can kind of see that.
Was it 92nd minute winner, something like that?
Yeah, 92nd minute winner. I can tell you where I was if that makes it of any interest because. I'm a home and away season ticket holder, and I have been now for 15 years. So I pretty much go every week. And being confident that we were going to get promoted, we all sat there thinking, right, what's the last game of the season? Is it going to go down to the wire? Yes, it is. And then about February, I got invited to my cousin's wedding. And I looked at it, and that was the day of Plymouth Argyle away. And I love my cousin to bits. I really do. She's brilliant. But I had to sit and make a decision to what I was going to do. And I gave my ticket away to a friend of mine.
Oh, good man. Good man. Took the moral victory.
I took the moral victory. But and she knows because I told her after the ceremony yesterday, I saw the whole game on my phone sat at the back of the let's say the wedding venue. I sat and saw the whole thing. And as the couple was signing the register, the marriage register, that's when Solomon hit the winner. And I had my wife sat next to me and she knew I was due to explode and she literally just grabbed me and I couldn't say a word. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done as a football fan was keep my mouth shut in a wedding while we were winning the title. So yeah, it's a brilliant day. So yes, that's me in a nutshell as a Leeds fan, really.
Well, let's wind the clock all the way back to the beginning then, Dave. How and why Leeds? What's the earliest memory you've got of following them and how did it come to be?
Well, okay, so I've been a football fan since about 1986. I'm 47, so I was born in 77. And as you can tell, if you know football accents, I am not a Yorkshireman. I am a Midlander by trade from Worcestershire. And as a kid, none of my family liked football. So I never had any sort of family lead as to where to go. As sometimes you'll go, oh, my big brother supports Arsenal or my cousin supports Leicester City or whatever. I had nothing. So in 85, 86, I did the thing that football fans should do and never change and picked a football team. And that football team was picked based on the fact that everybody else supported them at the time. And actually, that was Liverpool. So in 1986, up until 1990, I was a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old Liverpool fan. But when I got to middle school, I decided that it just wasn't right. I just didn't feel like I wanted to be that fan. And so I sat there and thought to myself, right, what am I going to do? I need to pick a new team. And didn't realise at that age that it's like the cardinal sin of cardinal sins to change football clubs, right? So I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. But I was made the decision that I was going to change teams, and I had a choice of two. And not many people know this, so this is a good story for your podcast. Now, bearing in mind what I can see in the background, and obviously having known you, Rob, I know who you support. My genuine two choices I was about to make was one was Arsenal and the other was Leeds. All right? Okay, so I sat there one day and thought, which one am I going to pick? And my mum took me to a sports shop in Cheltenham when we were on summer holidays. And she's like, what do you want? I was like, I want to buy a new football shirt. And the only football shirt of those two in there was a Leeds away shirt, a 1990 away shirt. It was so old back in the day, the shirts didn't have sponsors on. So I
Yeah.
bought this yellow Leeds shirt, and that was it. That was the end of the matter, and that's where it stuck. So that was 1990 when they got promoted from, funnily enough, like this weekend, promoted from Division 2 up to Division 1. And 2 years later, they won the championship, and that's basically where the roller coaster started. And I say I was like 12, 13 years old, so that's like 35 years ago now. So yeah, that's where it started.
Wow.
And I still to this day, I've got friends of mine who have never changed football clubs, and they never go to games, but they will still hold that against me. The fact that I changed clubs, it's the cardinal sin. We all know it. It's the cardinal sin to change football clubs. So whether you want to
Yeah.
delete this recording now or not, because you go, actually, he's not a proper fan, get rid of him, then that's fine by me. But yeah, so that was 1990. I'd started.
I think that it's allowed. I mean, especially with no kind of now, if you'd had like full on Liverpool family that had drilled it into you that you will be a Liverpool fan and you'd then
Yeah.
just given it a go for 4 years, then given up and picked Leeds, that could have been a bit different. But you were finding your feet, didn't feel right. I say kudos for you for knowing that you didn't have a connection to the team.
Yeah,
Now, if
and
you've
then
got, if,
the thing is now people will say to me, "Well, you can't really be classed as a glory supporter, can you?" When you consider that if I had picked Arsenal, if I'd stuck with Liverpool, they'd be like, "You could be a glory supporter." Well, I can't really be hit with that stick, so
no, you
you know,
can't. You absolutely can't. So we like to get this one out of the way so that we can talk about nicer things.
yeah.
What's been the lowest low? What's the real gut punch that you remember along your sort of fandom of, oh, God.
Um, I think the lowest low there were two. The first was the 2004 Premiership relegation, which was hard because the club was in financial dire straits. Going back in the history when we'd spent too much money, we knew we weren't going to recoup enough because we didn't get in the Champions League. It all started falling apart. Selling, really, really good up and coming players like at the time Rio Ferdinand to our biggest rivals, Man United, Alan Smith to Man United. That sort of time was really hard. And I remember being in the away end at Bolton Wanderers when it was confirmed that we were going down, and it was just grim. Really, really not a nice moment because you didn't know really how far we were going to sink. And obviously we sunk effectively down to the third division. But the thing is, at those times they were going, oh, Leeds are 70, 80, 90 million pound in debt. And you were like, wow, that's ridiculous. How have we fallen this far? You fast forward 20 years later and clubs are £1 billion in debt. And we're like, we were £60 million in debt, yet we were about to fall apart. So that was a hard one. That was the hardest one, I think. But then the one that gut punch is a good way to put it. Gut punch is the worst. Is the playoff semi-final defeat to, funnily enough, Derby County in the playoffs. So that was the first Bielsa season. I can't quite remember what year it would have been. 2019, maybe something like that. We'd done really well all through the season. Bielsa was just like the change of everything. It was just like a different world. We went to Derby in the playoff first leg and won, quite clearly won as well. Second leg at home, Ellen Road's absolutely buzzing, and we went 1-0 up, if I remember rightly. We thought, this is it. And I remember standing next to my mate who I stood next to for years, and we were going, right, so what are we going to do for Wembley? We're going to book a hotel, we're going to get a train, we're going to do this. Then, literally, it just all caved in, and we ended up losing that game to Frank Lampard's Derby County. And it was horrible because we'd gone in 45 minutes from working out what train times to get down to London for the final to sitting on the back of the bus on the way back from Leeds home at like 10:30 at night, just stunned, like a stunned silence. And it was just like, I just want it all to end here. It was horrible. We were just, and I remember just looking on Twitter when Twitter was Twitter before it became an idiot hole, just looking at people just giving Leeds so much grief. And you just had to just put your phone away and just forget it. And I just remember sitting on this bus, staring into space for like the 3-hour journey home, just thinking, I hate it. I absolutely hate this. And it's just grim, absolutely grim. And as soon as the season finished, that was it. I tried to forget it as much as I can because it was that low a moment. And thankfully, we went up the next season. But yeah, Derby County in the playoffs. If you ever see the highlights of that game, you can just almost see Derby County ripping the heart out of Ellen Road as the goals go in, and we knew it wasn't coming back. And it was
Oh
just
my
like, oh,
gosh.
it was horrible.
Oh, you're your relegation as well. I mean, that's always held up as a little bit of a case study
Mm,
of two things. One, you're not too big to go down.
yeah,
And two, overinvestment in chasing the Champions League dream. Because was it, oh God, Peter Ridsdale? Was he
yeah,
the chairman at the time? And you'd loaded
yeah,
all in on that. You know, you'd got the Champions League qualification. You were paying, I think, big salaries, big players, all this kind of stuff. And then when it didn't happen, and you missed, oh, it was a couple of
yeah,
years in a row, wasn't it? Champions League, and suddenly you've got all
yeah,
these players on Champions League money, and you'd like you say, it was just like a fire sale. You was just selling all
yeah.
these because I think
Mm,
he'd reached beyond his means, hadn't he? You'd like financed all of this, I think,
yeah,
for trying to
yeah.
chase it.
Yeah,
Um,
we'd taken big loans against the future Champions League income, and of course, that first season that we made the one season we made the Champions League, we did so well and got to the semi-final on what was a young squad with a few, high-priced purchases like Rio Ferdinand, Mark Viduka, that I think they presumed that we'd make it the following season, but I think we just missed out. So of course, you'd made all these big loan purchases, and they were going, well, you're going to have to pay these high revenues back, and we just didn't have that revenue. And it was just like, well, surely somebody's going to put their hand in their pocket and pay these, and there just wasn't anybody there to do it. So it literally became the fire sale. I mean, I remember obviously we said earlier about the Rio Ferdinand one. That was hard because it was to our biggest rival. Alan Smith said he wasn't going to leave to join Man United, and then he did. We lost Mark Viduka, who was a bit of a cult hero, scored a lot of goals, a bit of an old school centre forward where he didn't run much, but he scored a lot of goals,
yeah,
and we like that kind of player. And then you had like youth players that you'd brought through the academy that you thought this is going to be the future, having to be sold because you couldn't cut your cloth accordingly, so they had to go. So it's the term it was when you ever see. It's not so much now because other clubs have done it since, but in the 10 years after that disaster of us getting relegated and what have you, and losing all these players, it was the media's term, let's hope they don't do a Leeds, because it was the archetypal, this was the first team ever to go boom and bust in the space of what, 2 years? So
yeah.
it was something to be sort of like, we were mimicked for it, everything as a fan base. Leeds are falling apart again and all this kind of stuff. And it was horrible. And I say that's what led to that Bolton relegation day where we basically knew we'd hit rock bottom. And that's where we ended up in the Championship. And then obviously it got worse after that. So it was, yeah, hard, very hard times. That's why I say no one can ever accuse me of being a glory supporter. We didn't have a lot. We didn't have a
So
lot.
come on, let's turn this around then. Let's bring ourselves out of
Yeah.
the doldrums.
Yeah.
Highest high. I mean, obviously, probably yesterday in return to the Premier League's pretty good, but I'm sure it's not
Yes.
your.
Yeah.
Is it? What's your highest high?
It's funny. I sat thinking about this because obviously I knew what we were going to talk about, and I was like, highest high was, I guess, that Champions League run. For me as an individual, I wasn't a season ticket holder at the time, but this was back in the day where getting football tickets was a little bit easier. So I went to every single home Champions League game. So we had in the group phase, we had group phase one. This is back in the Champions League where they had two group phases. We had AC Milan, Barcelona, and Besiktas. And now at the time, Barcelona and AC Milan were like right top of the tree. So to see them in phase one, and then phase two was Real Madrid, Lazio, and Anderlecht. I think it was that. Was it Anderlecht? Real Madrid? I can't remember. One of those. But to see those guys come to Ellen Road when 3 years previous, the highest was getting to like the Carling Cup final at Wembley to play Villa and lose 3-0. To see Rivaldo and Olivier Bierhoff and Cafu and Raul at Ellen Road was just like mind blowing. So, as a period of time, that's probably the highest because I didn't really exist as a Leeds fan because I was like 13 when we won the title in '92. I wasn't going to games, so I was just a 15-year-old or whatever I was, just seeing it from afar, and it was great and whatever. So the Champions League one, but I have like a one game memory, which is a real big high for me, which is just a random league game away at Southampton. So you just go, where at Southampton? But the premise of the day was one of my best mates is a Southampton fan. And we shared a house together for about 2 years. And at that point was that game. So we went down together in the car. And I was in the away end and he was in the home end. But he got his tickets right by the away fans, so we could see each other during the game. So that was like, yeah, this is good. So I could see it. Game kicked off. At half time, we were 3-0 down. And it was just like, oh. And I remember this was when mobile phones worked in football grounds, because like they don't anymore. They literally may as well just throw them in the bin and go back to the car. I remember phoning him at half time, and I said to him, right, if you score again, I cannot sit in the car with you on the way home, so I will go home on the train. And he said, and he laughed. And I was like, what are you laughing at? I said, you're hammering us. It's 3-0 at half time. He went, this is Southampton on about here. It's not over yet. And I was like, okay, we'll see. I said, but if the fourth goes in, you go back to the car and you head home, and I'll go back on the train because I can't stomach it. Okay, he said. So the game kicked off, second half. 15 minutes to go, we were still 3-0 down. And I was like, oh. But they hadn't scored. And then we scored 4 goals in 12 minutes. It was absolutely crazy. It was brilliant. But the best part about it was there was still 3 minutes after we'd gone 4-3 up. There was still 3 minutes left. Even though there was 15 minutes left and we were still 3-0 down, it was that close to period. But the best thing was, because I said to you earlier, I could see my mate sat in the seat. Every time we scored, he sank into his seat a little bit deeper. So he sank once, it was like, oh. He sank second, it was like head in the hands. When the third goal went in, he literally had his head between his legs. And when the fourth goal went in, all I saw was what, obviously, after I'd almost had like a heart attack to celebrate, was watching him walk out the ground. He left. Anyway, he left, and I was thinking, has he gone home on the train? Because that's what I said I was going to do. Got back to the car. He got in the car. He never spoke to me all the way home. So it was a 2-hour journey. He never spoke to me all the way home. We got out of the car in Worcester. I got out of the passenger side of the car. He got out the back. He walked around the side of the car, shook my hand, walked into the house, and went straight to bed. So as much as it was just like a normal game, from like your friendship, when you always have friends that support different clubs, it was just the perfect day, and we still talk about it to this day. We're still mates forever. It's brilliant.
That's what I've said to other people that have come on. Like, highest high doesn't even need to be a trophy win or whatever it is. Sometimes highest highs are just that. Sometimes it's even just being there for like some ridiculous goal that you just know you're never going to see ever again in your life type thing. So, that's a brilliant story. Love that, Dave. I was looking down the players, and you can tell that. Okay, I'll say this the right way. Leeds have fallen from grace a little bit over the period that you've supported them, because I was looking back over the players that I would remember growing up, and I was going down the list, and it was like, when I was probably really getting into football, late 80s, you had David Batty, Gary Speed, Vinnie Jones, Lee Chapman, Gary McAllister. You've always had some cracking players. Although, mind you, Lee Chapman, I will say this, I once played a five-a-side tournament at Highbury, and somehow we won. And they told us there was an Arsenal legend coming out to give out the medals. And I was the only Arsenal fan amongst the little group of this five-a-side team. And I was like, I wonder who we're going to get. And Lee Chapman came out, who must have played like maybe twice for Arsenal. And I was like, what? Why is Lee Chapman here? Anyway, I met Lee Chapman, shook his hand. But
I didn't even know he played for Arsenal. I hadn't got a clue he even had played for Arsenal. Wow.
Yeah, he legend. Look at this. If I go onto his Wikipedia, 1982 to 1983, 23 appearances and 4 goals. There you go.
I'll tell you what, that's proper legendary status at Arsenal, isn't it? If you're a legend at Arsenal,
legend.
Made 23 appearances, it's not quite Ian Wright, is it?
But the one I want to talk about, maybe not necessarily the one that got away, but Eric Cantona at Leeds.
Okay, yeah.
Oh man, he was some player, but he did the thing that you shouldn't do. He crossed the divide over to Manchester.
Yeah, he did. Well, this is the thing again. Going back to the Rio Ferdinand thing, that was what I think it was only the third time since I've been a Leeds fan that it happened. When Cantona went, that was one, and then we sort of stumbled after that, and then we signed Lee Sharp from Manchester United. And that never really worked. And then the Ferdinand thing. So it hasn't really ever worked. But when Cantona went, I mean, I'd been a Leeds fan for a couple of years. I just remember when we signed him he went on like a trial or something at Sheffield Wednesday.
That's right.
Yeah. They didn't want him for some reason. I think, I'm not 100% sure this is right, but I can't remember. I think Trevor Francis was the manager of Sheffield Wednesday or whoever it was. And they said they didn't want to keep him because he hadn't got the discipline. Yet Wilkinson had seen him in games in France and was like, that's a maverick. And if we can tame him and get him to play in our system, then this could be something special. And I mean, I sort of speak to friends of mine that are a lot older. A lot of the guys I go with are sort of like late 50s, early 60s now. So they were around. And they will tell me that he was absolutely like out of this world, like just different level, maverick type player. And it's one of the things that you see now that you don't get anymore. Teams football is so structured now around like management and tactics. You don't get the Matt Letizia, Eric Cantona types anymore because everyone is like, we need to play this structure, we need to play what the manager says, we need to play this formation, this like drill or whatever. Whereas when you had the likes of Cantona, you didn't know what he was going to do. So as a fan, what you loved more than anything was a player that you didn't know what they were going to do because he was off your seat type stuff, wasn't he, when he did it? So we absolutely loved him. But then the cardinal sin of going across the Pennines to that lot was just like heart-wrenching. And I've heard some stories about, I think the first game he came back to Ellen Road, he got so much grief. I think at one point he spat at Leeds fan, and that was the end of that. That was it. He was never coming back from that. So I just remember being told that kind of stuff. But it's all part of the rivalry. I mean, I'll tell you another little quick story. I was invited to go to the Ryan Giggs testimonial, right, at Old Trafford, just before he retired. And they always seem to do it, but if you have a testimonial in this country, they always invite Celtic to play because Celtic brings such a big fan base and this, that, and the other. So I got invited to go and sit in the Celtic end. And I sat there. So 5 minutes before the game ends, substitution for Manchester United, number 11, Ryan Giggs. Off he goes, claps the crowd, blah, blah, blah. And to replace him, please welcome to the pitch, number 7, Eric Cantona. Now, everybody in the ground stood up and applauded, except me, who turned my back to the pitch and just folded my arms. I was like, I ain't clapping him. And I got loads of dirty looks because I was supposedly in the Celtic end. It was just Celtic and Man United fans everywhere. And no one could understand why I stood with my back to the pitch and folded my arms. But I couldn't tell anybody I was a Leeds fan because I think I'll never get out of here alive if I tell them I'm a Leeds fan at Old Trafford. So I said nothing, but I don't think it was difficult to work out what it was.
Oh my gosh. And as I just kind of then go through a few more of the play, I mean, you got to remember Tony Yeboah was that goal in the Premier League, right? But the one that we were always linked with, the one that I wanted, one of my favourite players from that kind of 90s era was Harry Kewell. I just thought he was brilliant. And there was Arsenal were linked with him. I think he ended up going to Liverpool in the end and never really kicked on. But that combo of Kewell and Viduka, they played together for a bit. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. Like Harry Kewell was just this. It was exactly what you wanted as a fan because he came through the youth academy. No one had ever heard of him, and he just came out of the blocks like 100 miles an hour. He was quick. He was skillful. He got an eye for a goal. He could hit a ball like nobody else, and he was just brilliant. And because he was Australian, it suddenly like everyone took an interest because this was back in the day where there still aren't many, but there was not many Australian footballers, and all of a sudden, who's this kid? And he was brilliant. And I always remember during the Champions League run and the year before we were in the what was the UEFA Cup then, we had teams being linked buying Harry Kewell. And they were talking, this is like, so it's 20, 25 years ago, 35 million pound, like Juventus wanted to buy Harry Kewell and this, that, and the other. And we're like, we can't sell him. And you sit and think to yourself now, if we had sold him, we may not have gone as far in the Champions League, but we may not have been in the trouble money-wise if we had sold him because he was such a talent. And, all the days of PSR now that we have now. But if you've got a kid that comes up through the youth academy and you make all this money off him, suddenly your money problems are over because you're not having to recoup a loss. You're making pure profit. But, of course, as football fans, you never want to see your best players sold. The problem with Kewell was he was a great player, but it went very sour towards the end. So if you ask a Leeds fan now who your favourite player was from that era, a lot of people say it was Harry Kewell, but I'd never have him back at Ellen Road now in any way, shape or form because of the way he left and how he left on bad terms, went to Liverpool. Right. And then, of course, he went to Galatasaray. So Leeds don't have obviously a great relationship with Galatasaray over history. So that soured his kind of like copybook with us, because we used to have rumours of him coming back in a coaching capacity, and no Leeds fan ever wants to see him again, just purely based on the fact how he treated the club. It's a little bit like that with Lee Bowyer, because he was a brilliant player as well. He was box to box, he scored goals. Very similar. But the sort of the relationship with him soured a little bit as well, the way he left the club. So you always get this, but Kuehl was really good. I mean, Viduka was the one that stood out for me, because he could do it all. When on his day, the 4 goals against Liverpool that Saturday lunchtime was just absolutely crazy. I've never really quite seen anyone score 4 goals before. He was just great. So yeah, that type of era, because that was the type of era when I started going regularly, like the Champions League time and stuff, and that type of run with that to David O'Leary team was when I started going week in, week out, and hence why I've been right through the Maya down to League One days. And this is completely different. It's saying about the lows. The 2 years we had in League One were probably 2 of the best years I've had travelling around the country as a Leeds fan, because you were going to grounds you'd never been to before. We're going to Cheltenham Town, Hereford, Crewe, Carlisle, all these places that you think, oh, I don't want to go there. But actually, they were the best days. They were the best days as a football fan, going somewhere that wasn't sanitised Leicester City, or, boring old, like the new Tottenham Stadium, where the atmosphere is not great, but it looks pretty. You were going to places where people got stuck in the turnstiles and the toilets were outside, and you stood on a terrace getting wet and it wasn't even raining. You're thinking, where's that coming from? That sort of thing. Those are the kind of places that your memories come from. So I've had some fun doing this over the years, I'll be honest.
Well, that's a nice little segue as we're kind of coming towards the end here. Then, so you've had all those days, you supported them, and now you're spending the summer looking forward to the Premier League. What's your thoughts, hopes, whatever for next season?
I think at the moment, because it's been a long season, and it's like 46 games. I think I've missed 7 games all season, in and out, and that's a 46-game season. I think I've missed 7 purely because of work. And I run a supporters branch that goes up to games every week. So it's quite a lot of like clerical work, booking buses and stuff like that. So it's been a long season. So actually, to get past yesterday, lift the trophy, enjoy that moment. I'm actually looking forward to a bit of a break for a few weeks of just not thinking about it, actually enjoying just watching other teams, like watching the playoffs and watching the Champions League and this, that, and the other. But from a looking forward point of view, I'm actually quite excited, because we've got owners with quite a lot of money, but they're not stupid. So for those that don't know, we're part owned by the 49ers Enterprises, so the San Francisco 49ers owners. And we've got a 20% investment from Red Bull. Now, that doesn't sit great, but from a financial point of view, it's good. So from a point of view of thinking, well, how are we going to do this? I'm quite excited. It's literally just been announced about an hour ago that Farke isn't getting sacked, because that would have been mental to sack your manager when you just won the league and got 100 points. So that's good from my perspective, because I wanted him to keep the job. He's earned it. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing that we're going to get a few new players. You don't want to be completely disloyal to the players that have won you the title, but I think we do need to strengthen about maybe 5-6 players, bit more quality, a bit more experience to manage games out. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward to mostly getting Man United back at home, because that's always, let's just say, it's a tasty affair. And actually, of all of them, because I'm an away season ticket holder, going to the new Everton ground, Bramley Moor Dock. Because, I've been past it a few times, because I work all around the country, and I've been up in Liverpool a couple of times since it's been built, and it looks really good. So to get to go to that one's something I'm really looking forward to. And I've got a couple of friends that are quite big Everton fans, so that'll be quite a good one. So yeah, it's all really positive, actually. The announcement of the expansion of the ground and all this kind of stuff, because you can't fit all the people in Ellen Road. It's 20,000 short of what it needs to be. So to have the proposals and stuff like that for the new ground and new stands at the ground is a really positive thing. So yeah, do you know what? I'm really looking forward to the break, but once I get to about July, I'll be getting twitchy feet again, and I'll be like, "Come on, let's get back. I don't know what to do on my weekends anymore. There's enough gardening you can do."
Yeah, true. Now, without trying to put a bit of a Debbie Downer on it, you guys
Yeah,
and Burnley and whoever else comes up, you're going to have to buck the trend. I think it's the last two
yeah,
seasons, all three promoted sides have gone straight back down. And
yeah,
you almost just hit the nail on the head about closing games out. I think Ipswich have got some terrible record for points lost from winning
mm,
positions because they're not closing games out, scoring goals and then just not closing it out. So I think you're right. I think it's probably just that bit of experience to bring into a squad to just have a run because all you probably care about is being 17th or better, right? It's
yeah.
just don't be in the bottom three.
Yeah,
So
that's literally it. I mean, we're under no illusions that it's going to be hard. Every year further you fall out of the Premier League, it's harder to get back. And Southampton, I was saying to you about my friend's a Southampton fan. He basically, I've spoke to him about it when they got relegated back in like, I don't know, was it November or whatever, something stupid like that. And I said to him about it, I was like, well, go on then, why? Because obviously they were the team that beat us in the playoff final last year. And he's like, we just didn't invest. We thought we could do it, spending 25, 30 million pound on a couple of guys that we thought might do okay. But those aren't the players that push you over the line when you 1-0 up away at Fulham. You know, you need players to see games out. And unfortunately, we sat there as Leeds fans last week looking at the table and looking at the playoffs and going, who do we want to go up in the playoffs? Because obviously we've gone up and so have Burnley. And we were all going, Bristol City. And we're all under the agreement that if it was someone like Bristol City, you sit there and go, that's somebody, no disrespect to Bristol City, that we think would probably not be able to invest the money to stay up. So you go, well, that's one place gone already. And then Burnley have got a really, really good defence, but have they got enough to score the goals to keep them up? Because you've got to score goals. You know, you say all good and well having a great defensive record, but in the Premier League, you need a goal scorer. They always say you need a goal scorer. So you sit
yeah,
there and go, they're going to struggle. So where do we sit? And we sit there going, without being bullish, we think we could, with like 5 or 6 additions, have enough to push 17th, 16th, and that'll
yeah,
do.
that'll
That'll
do.
do. That I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Well, time is upon us. So this has been brilliant, Dave. Some great stories in
Yeah,
there. And all I can
that's
say
all right,
is,
mate.
thank you so much for coming on and good luck for the Premier League season.
No problem at all, mate. You're more than welcome.